Hey everybody, this is Stelly FD with Closer, and in today's video I want to talk about basic sales benchmarks for your funnel so you know if you're in trouble or if you're doing well. Just trying to give you some guidelines on what the minimum number should be each step of your sales funnel for you to be in a healthy place or even at a great place. I get this question all the time. Stelly, what should be our open rate for our cold email campaign? Stelly, what should be our closing rate for our cold calling campaigns? People, we all are starving to know if we're doing well or not, and we're trying to find somebody or something to compare to know how we are progressing or how well or bad we are doing. And oftentimes I'll say it depends, and I'll get to that point in a little bit because it does depend. It does depend on the size of your company, the market you're going after, the industry, the typical buyer, sometimes even the season in the year, who you're competing with. So it's hard to give you usually a number that will be true for everybody on this planet for any kind of sales campaign. But I'll give you, if you're in the B2B space, then I'll give you some basic benchmarks that are holding pretty true. I've coached and mentored thousands of founders and I've seen an insane amount of data. And these benchmarks are pretty safe guiding posts for all of you that are out there are wondering how well or how bad are we really doing. So let's go through this really quickly together. We'll just take two simple funnels, right? Because it's the same principle basically. Let's start with cold emailing campaigns, right? So if you do sales emails, cold sales emails, you want to know, your funnel might look something like this, right? So how many emails are opened, how many emails are responded to, and how many of these responses lead to a conversion. Whatever the conversion is that you're trying to accomplish with your email campaign, it could be scheduling a demo, it could be signing up for a trial, it could be downloading a white paper. I don't know what it is, but you should have one conversion in mind. If you look at this very simplified, simple funnel for a cold email sales campaign, the open rate that you want to aim for, the benchmark that you want to look at as a guiding post is at least, at a minimum, having a 30% open rate, right? So when you send sales emails, if less than 30% open those emails, you are typically in deep trouble, or there is your biggest opportunity to really make an impact in the results you're driving in that email campaign, right? It is in writing better subject lines, sending it at a better time, sending it from a better email address, sending it to a better prospect so that more people are interested enough to open, to even give a chance and give a look, a read to what you have written to them and what you're trying to convey to them. So you want to have a minimum open rate of 30%. Now, I don't say that 30% is the best open rate I've ever seen, right? I've seen open rates that are insanely high. What I'm saying is if you're less than 30%, you're in trouble. So you need to have, at a minimum, you need to hit 30% open rate when you send cold emails, cold sales emails. Excuse me. So now that we've got that, the next step when somebody opens the email is they should consume the email, read it, and then how do we know that they did is that they respond, right? They take some kind of an action. They click, they hit reply, they take whatever action we wanted them to take. A lot of times it is a response. It is hitting a reply and sending us an email back and starting the conversation, the communication with us. There, what you need to aim is a very similar number. You need to look for 30% at a minimum. Again, ideally, I want that number to be much more at the 50% range when possible. But if it's lower than 30%, if it's just 20% or 10 or 5, again, you are in trouble, right? And you won't be able to make up for it by more volume, by just sending more and more emails at the top of the funnel. Something is fundamentally broken about the email, the body of the email. Now people have opened it, they read it, and only 30% or less than 30% respond to it. So your pitch, the person you're pitching it to, or what you're asking them to do, one of these three things or a combination of all three things is broken and you need to fix it. 30% open rate as a minimum, 30% response rate as a minimum, and then we have conversion as the last step in our simple funnel. What is the benchmark there? 50% as a minimum. Now this might seem high to you, but think about it. This is 50% of the people that opened your email, read it, and responded. That's a highly qualified, highly engaged target and person. Out of those, now it's turning into a real sales challenge. Everything up until this point was much more about ideal customer profile, writing great email, great copy, being very engaging, very, very focused, doing all these things right. The last step, the conversion, is a sales challenge. It's a sales skill. It's a sales task. So if you take these people that read what you said, opened it, read it, responded to it, hopefully are qualified, you should close or convert 50% of them to take the next step, the demo call, the trial sign up, the white paper download, whatever the hell it is. 30, 30, 50. That should be your benchmark, your guiding post. You want to be better than that, but you can't be much lower than that. If you are, you're in trouble. Let's take cold calls as a next little funnel that we're going to look at, and I'll give you some basic benchmarks, right? We have number of dials with reach rate, how many people actually picked up the phone where the decision maker had a conversation with me and had a chance to say, F off or hang up or I'm interested. So dials, reach rates, reaches or connections, qualifications, conversions, right? So how many people did I dial? How many people did I reach? How many of those people that I reached did I qualify? How many of those people that I qualified did I convert to the next step? Very simple funnel. Here are the benchmarks you need to look at. Out of those that you dial, you need to have a reach rate of a minimum of 30%. See a pattern here, right? 30%. If your reach rate is lower than 30%, your cold calling campaign is dead in the water. You might as well stop cold calling right now, because if you can't fix that step and that stat, nothing else really matters in your funnel, right? It needs to be at a minimum of 30%. Obviously, we want that number to be much, much higher, but you will be surprised how many cold calling campaigns are struggling and struggling and struggling. And when I ask them the question, what is your reach rate? They can't tell me the answer. They don't know, they don't track it. But once we analyze that number, it turns out it's 5%, it's 10%. This will never work, right? The number, the math doesn't really work. So you need to reach at least 30%, much more ideally 40 or 50% if you can, of the people that you're trying to get in touch with. Now that you've reached 30%, once I reach somebody, how many of those people do I want to qualify? 50%. Again, this might seem high, but think about this. You researched the person. You researched the phone number. Hopefully you did a fucking good job deciding that this is a qualified person to begin with, and you're not just calling random people. Now you called, and you didn't just call, the person picked up the phone. At least half of the time, if you had a quick conversation with that person, it should be reconfirmed that yes, it doesn't mean they're going to buy, but it means this person could buy and should buy our product. If your qualification rate is like super low, let's say 10%, you're wasting all this energy, all this time, all this money calling people you should never call because they should never buy. That's insane, right? So you want to qualify at least half the people that you reach and talk to. And of the people that you qualified, how many do you want to convert to the next step? Probably guessed it at this point, 50% at a minimum. Again, simple logic applies. You decided this person is somebody that should buy your product. Hopefully you're really focused on your ideal customer profile. You called them, you reached them, you had a conversation, you qualified them. Now, again, it's a sales challenge. And out of all the people you qualify, half of them you should be able to close if you know how to pitch, to sell, to negotiate, and to champion and win a customer over, right? So 30, 50, 50 on the cold call, 30, 30, 50 on the cold email campaigns. Those should be your benchmarks pretty much no matter where and how you sell in the B2B world. Hopefully the numbers are much better, but if they're much lower, you have to be a unicorn exception. Your metrics need to be so unusual to make the math work and make your business work and scale. Now, a few caveats before I wrap this up. Number one, obviously, context is everything. That's why I said your unit economics, your market, your buyer, your customer lifetime value, all these things matter a lot and what those percentages need to be. But these are some guiding posts that are pretty battle tested and proven, within many companies. The other thing that you really want to do is one thing that I'd highlight is that it's one thing to know what the overall generic benchmark is and logic behind it, but the main goal that I would have if I were you, no matter what your numbers look like, is instead of focusing so much on a specific number, more importantly, if your numbers are not totally out of whack, if you're not like you have a reach rate of 1% versus 30, right? That you probably have a massive issue that you really need to address. But let's say your funnel looks something like this. You have 20% reach rate, you have a 30% qualification rate, and you have a 30% conversion rate in your cold calling campaign, right? Not quite the numbers I said, but not half of them. Like, it's kind of close-ish to it, right? What I would focus on is just improving your numbers month by month, quarter by quarter, year by year, and you're going to be in fantastic shape long term. even more important for the people that have good numbers already and that will listen to this and then will pat themselves on the back and go, well, our work is done here. We already have great numbers. No, motherfuckers, your work is never done. There's a world of competition that's working hard to make their numbers better and better. And the real winners, they don't look for the average. They don't look for the benchmark. They want to be the exception. They want to be the exception that pushes the average up for the entire planet and the entire industry. They look to be so much better than everybody else that nobody sees them coming. So there's somebody competing with you that has much higher reach rates than 30%, much higher conversion or qualification rates than 50%. There's companies out there that are crushing it, and you should aim to be one of them, right? And it's a never-ending journey, hopefully. So improvement is really the skill, and the main competition you have is the competition of yourself and of your past, right? Just try to improve your numbers every single quarter. You do that for a year or two, you start gonna look like a really, truly amazing business. All right, I hope this was useful and helpful. Make sure to subscribe to our blog, blog.close.io. And until next time, let's go and get them.